Hi, so welcome to this new section of my channel. Um, I think it's gonna be kind of a series of vlogs, but I'm not sure yet. What I'm sure of is that it's something more for me because I want to practice my English in order to be more aligned to what I'm gonna start sharing with you. So, well, if you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Reina, and well, you're gonna come with me on my journey, and if you're wondering what journey I'm talking about, well, keep on watching the video and you'll know. And just please don't be that hard on myself. I give cringe to my own self. I don't know if that's how you say it, but yeah. So I'll get better with time. Just be gentle with your critiques, and well, that's it for now. Traveling through the state of California arrived to me like one of those completely unexpected surprises that my mind could not have anticipated. When I least expected it, this idea began growing inside of me. First, something casual, momentary, even something expected for anyone living near the border. The frequent visits I made to the closest cities like San Diego or a bit further north to Corona or Los Angeles, which I often visit to see my family, were unknowingly preparing me. They were planting in my heart a desire to take a longer journey through its freeways. The songs that I sometimes listen to in the background would take me on a small road trip that, to my liking, always ended too soon and left me wanting more and more. Over time, my constant learning in personal development and consciousness expansion began bringing me closer to my origins, and that idea eventually settled within me as a future adventure. I remember a few years back being given an assignment where I had to research everything about the first place that received me when I came into this world. And that place was San Diego. Even though I have always lived in Tijuana and considered my birthplace something present in a way because of its proximity, I had never really stopped to think that I actually knew very little or nothing about it. And that's when curiosity about the future began to take root. I always felt very proud to be Mexican, I have to say. Or rather, I never questioned the fact that I was born outside the country. For me, speaking Spanish as my first language and having Mexican parents was more than enough reason to feel more Mexican than the beans themselves. Now, looking back, I realized that the country that received me at birth was already present in my life, planting seeds that I would later, with greater awareness, begin to see grow and eventually want to water. At first, I tried to focus on its history, how it was San Diego a Mexican territory until 1848, how its original inhabitants were the Kumeyaay, or how the first mission of the state was founded there, which is precisely what gave San Diego its name, the birthplace of California, or how it is the second largest city in the state. I also discovered other facts that were even more interesting to me, such as the large number of companies, scientists, university, and financial resources dedicated to developing technologies related to life and health. And like a puzzle, one piece began connecting with another until everything started pushing me toward the present culture, towards what has been created today. It is curious how life sends us through nonlinear paths for a reason that only reveals itself if we are brave enough to walk them, and to discover that purpose is not about moving in a straight line. Last year, I left everything I call home, my apartment, my city, my furniture. I sold some things and gave others away. The intention was to keep only the essentials to begin an adventure whose expiration date I didn't know. At 40 years old, with almost an entire life of conscious personal work, I was very aware of my weaknesses. So I assumed that, like a newborn bird, if I wanted to fly, I had to cut the branch I was standing on. And that meant letting go of what that moment I called home, and essentially having nowhere to live. Sometimes having nowhere to return forces you to keep moving forward. I almost randomly ended up living a few months in Puerto Escondido and a few months in Todos Santos. And although I ended the year back in Tijuana, something in me had already changed, and the United States was no longer just where my gaze was directed. It had become a written plan I was beginning to design. Having lived half of the year in such touristic places allowed me to be in close contact with foreigners, mostly Americans, and little by little I became intrigued by their way of acting, thinking, and living. Everything gently pushed me toward what seems like a destination already written for me. Today, that plan that once felt distant, difficult, and economically unsustainable has become a reality. I begin my journey through the state of California trying to understand its culture beyond the obvious narrative reflected in its politics, in sensationalist media, and in the concept that I had built as a Latina with family in the United States, and knowing that my perception of an entire culture was based through a very specific lens. It feels important to me that in these difficult and challenging times the country is going through, those of us who once had the opportunity to be received and welcomed by this land, with all its laws and benefits, would contribute something more than just the taxes from a shopping trip. I know that what I am saying may sound strange to some, and it probably is. And although years ago I stopped worrying about fitting in, I noticed that the things that truly move me in life are often uncommon or difficult for other people to understand. Sometimes empathy requires from us to do things different from what we were taught. Sometimes a hug, a good wish, or a kind word, it's not enough. And let's be honest, sometimes they don't help much at all. In times of great crisis, different actions are needed, uncomfortable actions that allow us to see beyond the obvious problem. I have not even been traveling this beautiful state for a month, and I already can say I'm beginning to understand many attitudes. I'm starting to see behind the American mask that we criticize, that we point at, and from which many of us at some point have benefited without consciously giving back. I understand that many will not agree with me, and not only that, they may think completely differently. But in the end, we all express ourselves from the only place we can, the reality we inhabit. And that reality may or may not come from privilege, and there is nothing wrong with it. Because knowing both sides of the same coin is what creates a broader perspective and therefore balance. Just like a human being who is always giving eventually becomes tired, and when they reach their limits, their bad mood or attitude surprises us or upset us, I believe the same happens with countries. Land also carries energy. They are full of life. And beyond the people who represents them, politicians, native population, migrants, like any living being on this planet, they need to be deeply seen and included in our hearts. That returns them to their rightful place. It honors them. And when something living is included, recognized, and honored, it doesn't just flourish, it opens space to receive. I deeply believe that we have the responsibility to honor the land that sustained our birth, and for that it is essential to know it, not only as a physical place, but as a culture, an essence and energy that speaks to who we are. In life, it is not only about taking and being grateful. To remain in balance with our roots, it is also about giving and honoring. To truly know the place that receives us among all the places that exist on earth is to learn a little more about ourselves. It is to understand characteristics that are not only attributed to genetics or personality, but to an invisible yet powerful field, an emotional environment, a history and energy that was already there before us. Our roots speak to us in a very deep language, one will not always find in books. That is why I believe it is important to go beyond written history, to walk the land with our own feet and observe what surrounds it. Sometimes it is enough to look at an ancient tree to understand the intimacy of that place, the mysticism of its atmosphere, or the strength of its people. There is information stored in everything that is alive, and the magic is in the discovering its language, allowing the aroma to whisper what we may have already sensed, or letting the song of a bird heal something within us that we didn't even know was unsettled. I begin this journey trying to understand the side that is not easy to see in this country, not to justify it, not to defend it, not to take a one sided position, but simply to understand it from its root. And perhaps in doing so, the other part of me will also come together and complete what has not yet made sense, what does not seem to fit or align with a preconceived image of myself.